video, we will dive into the movie G.I. Joe Retaliation. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's protection details in box office performance. Finally, we will share some reactions. So let's begin with the movie story. The movie G.I. Joe Retaliation is the second part of the G.I. Joe franchise. Seeing as how G.I. Joe Retaliation is a live-action cartoon, I wish we could have seen through balloons above the heads of Channing Tatum in The Rock Gen and Bruce Willis, among others, as they filmed their reuse and over BL Deckleys, not their chance. Mind you, I wanted to see thought balloons indicating what was going through the minds of the actors as they went through their PES. Let's see. This paycheck will cover the vacation house of what? Another 2 years, plus I can get a gold harem. Hey, I wonder if any of these punks are the original Die Hard. Wait, they want me to say. Well, what about Peyton's gun? Jesus. Jason, I know they are going to turn this scene into a slow motion. GR Walk in the editing, how many times I am IG to have to walk in slow motion with flames bursting all around me? Am I going to do doing this when I am 70? Tatum, I've got to talk to my agent about these must-beer in the sequel contracts. Add and play. Hey, everybody, remember me. I was on Friday night. That How had actually writing. So the G-Joy Retaliation I think I made my thought on, Turn Off My Brains movies. Clear when I reviewed Battleship last year for me, if a film has a budget near exceeding 100 million US dollars, it doesn't get a pass when it comes to bad plot or acting that's being said. It is possible not to understand the appeal of these movies. I think there are two key barometers for me anyway, that it comes to giving an overall rating for me movie, which are, was I entertained or was I engaged? Battleship fills specularly at both heartless, but G Retaliation actually passed one of them, that being Battleship was legally poor, but GI gets just a bit more preddy for me for a number of reasons than I go into. That's not to say it's a good movie. Of course, G.I. Joe Retaliation is the short of equal to G, The Rise of Cobra, which sees the T Special Forces JIT. I think that's what they are anyway. Take on the might of AL, the organization Cobra. When Cobra managed to get a duplicate, present in place Jonathan PR, they are able to pretty much wipe the jaws out except for a few survivors led by Redlock Davin, The Rock or Jensen, the remaining Chew, Lady J. Flint. A Guyson General Colton must find a way to stop the maniacal V-domination scheme of Cobra Commander, Fireflies, Storm Shadow, and Zone R. So is entertaining. It's over the top. Silly action-packed, but it is entertaining, it's fun and expectable till ride. The plot is actually a bit of a step up for The Rise of Cobra, insofar as it maintains a coherence as Manipity, that it prores El No Underwater Eye Fortress. In the one No, a tower-eating 90s, the actual deadly Mark and 10 controls, used as space-based weapons, is based on real science and theoretical applications. Aside from one big CGI heavy moment late on Retaliation, never actually gets too bad on that score. It's well placed. I think the production team know that Diog was not their focus on strong PO, so exposition and character development is kept contained enough to still be some OSTR, but is broken some by numerous entertainment action sequence. That's being said, the pacing does take a bit of a hit. At times, the opening sequence of defective extraction in North Korea was basically lowy and slow. As an introduction to a movie of this type, the action flips awkwardly between plot, especially between the roadblock parts and the snake ice part. In the first half of the movie, just seems Ed to jump back and forth between the two, with limited time given to each in each segment. There was also a few sequences that went on way too long, like the prison escape in East Germany, which could have been handled in a much simpler fashion without the complex setup for the situation. For much the same payoff, then there is a laughable stuff. Life roadblock meeting up with this Cheeto, bodies in America. It all smote out in the lat half of the movie talk. I mean more than the first one. Retaliation gets the beckon and does them competently, even if there are tears at the seams. Storm Shadows have a little redemption revenge. AR on Zeron, that's all good. Roadblock had some of his own vengeance to get, and they set up the doll between him and Fairly very nicely. So actually had some run-in in the final encounter. It feels to land in other places, like with Lady J, and this very rushed father figure thing that she has with Colton. This is all basic storytelling, and Retaliation can at least say that it gets it right some of the time, as you might expect. There is bad logic in keeping plot holes all over the place, which distract from the overall experience. They are scratched about the running time, but really start to peel up during the last half hour, which can be viewed as a bit of fan immersion. Deal breaker Retaliation depths a world where every nuclear power on Earth can have all of these nuclear missiles in the air in seconds stank to the orders of a single man, and that this same person can self-destruct them all in mid-air, which doesn't create any fallout problem. No, sir, the against time and final is to stop the TAN roads for being released over major capitals. But this takes the form of after donating the satellites holding them, which should send the tungsten roads into free fall. Right Cobra are a terrorist organization that have been involved in numerous large-scale atrocities, but no one parts annihilate with the president makes them his new special forces. Team the United States somehow operates a prison in East Germany so far underground that it goes beyond national sovereignty and is more than happy to keep Cobra Commander and DARO in BTIC condition. For some reason, London gets white out, but after the neat visual effect, it actually doesn't get a single reference, not even a reaction shot from the British Prime Minister. Someone says they will cyber blast an encrypted message at one point, and right at the end, for some reason, Roadblock lets off a pistol at a military ceremony. I went into the movie knowing that I would encounter after such problems. They seem to be an inherited part of the modern action movie. The key is whether they pass the inception test of being president in, and otherwise for production. G. Joe gets middling marks on the score, especially in the final 30 minutes. The whole situation with the nukes especially is totally the fail. The acting talent on display is a very mixed variety. There are only 3 real standout of a very large cost. Dan Jensen is actually a better actor than people give him credit for. I think anyway, even if he has been largely relegated to action roles, he gets to have some good moments with Canik Tatum here and displays an intensity, drive of retribution, part of the plot, for well enough in the later half of proceedings. He is not spectacular by any means and does get a little sight return, but as the main star of an action movie, he does his job. Jonathan, as both the real and the fake president, gets the best of both worlds. He HS it up as the bad guy in a delightfully sceney, chaming shot of way, and I think he is a compelling and interesting villain, a charming devil attitude-esting everything that he does. Lee is probably the best bad guy. The Storm Shadow has the only thing resembling and effect backstory, and probably has the most emotional range to show off, from breaking Cobra Commander out of the prison to getting captured to gang after Zarin. At the conclusion, it mostly strike. Of course, but like with the Rise of Cobra, the producer know that Storm Shadows has someone to focus on, not just for this LLY with snake eyes, but because they could get some half-decent plant out of him. Lee provides that unfortunately, just because everyone else is some kind of awful Park is bought mute and completely covered with snake eyes. So, despite the substantial chunk of his running time, I cannot really read him Eloy Chun as Joe Memberjins. I am not sure she got more than 2 lines. She was just short of. Theory, Stone is an actor I really like. But man, V the Phonic as in the B time here, he was able tough guy. Only with a slight accent. His fire scene with Jay are good. But he was that lie unmemorable in terms of actual acting ability. DJ Contronez, Flint appears at first to be an important part of the cost, but upon reflecting, I cannot remember a single thing of any MP sit that he did, or any F that he had on the plot in Jurel. He was just there in lot of scene and with lines of dialogue, but not ainly contributing anything worth life bizarre. Vicky seems to just be the obligatory female character, and she's not a great actress. I would buy her as a soldier in the first half of the movie, but then suddenly it was all so much eye-rolling body image, explorating stuff, the father figure angle with V flats, because she didn't get time to do anything with it. Not that I have much faith, and she could have Channing. Tatum returns briefly as Duke, I think one of only 3 holes over from the last movie. He does fine, especially in the scenes with Jessen, but he exists in this movie to be just a motivator in death. Barry Beaker is pretty sinister as the Cobra Commander, but he's such an OT villain character that's hard to really fool. This acting chops heat and comes off as villain anyway. So I suppose it was a success. Wellen Goins lost. Seen a pretty comedic role in Lincoln in the prison. Parton here, a really strange role, where he is portrayed as his gleefully stick type, but still short of a hero. Such a bizarre way to play such a character, and it was one of the big problems with the whole Conveyed sequence. Airlord Velo is apparently in the movie, but I suspect he was never actually unset, since he has no lines in Might Justice have been CG'd in Joseph Mulu, whom I.L. saw staring around him a lot in the Pacific, in the Stal FNG here, who sets just enough time to be youthful before he killed off our said is the blind master heavily maked up, is a really strange part that seems built for a stab cameo. Kind of like how Freighter turned up in the first one. Of some reason he is pretty blind. And lastly, there is a Bruce Fissis who does an awful job. He really doesn't care about this movie, with Stun Stog and a total L of believable interaction. He appears to be in this movie because he was available, and it's always nice to have a big name to supplement in the cost. Just awful from the way he kept calling J. Brenda seriously. What was that? To his casual revealing of the M of Cons in the house, to his limited role in the final. What was he doing in this movie? A performance to match Liam Neeson in Battleships. That far, damn sure it's okay. Script work for the most part. A little unnatural at times, especially when it comes to any of the plot hole moments I have mentioned about. There is a lot of stuff thrown in that seems to be beginning of something meaningful, only to get caused to the wayside. There are references to some Imperial-handled pistols are important, but we never really see why. A throwaway line tells us that Jinx is Storm Shadow's sister, but this apparently important bit of information doesn't really seem to matter for the rest of the movie. Just a lot of stuff like that. Obviously, white play is not going to be the key strength in an action movie, but Retaliation is trying to add the every least, so I have to get it some credit. I like the kemet between Duke and Roadblock in the early part of the movie, which was funny and indicative of a close relationship, which helped to set up the revenge quest later on. I like the bad cast, Stog, if only because I am a sewer of anything megalamical and over the top of the get-go. And there's the smaller things when the water mentioned the cooling agents they use to keep the prison from roasting, and these filmable agents are used as a weapon letter. That's a good foreshortening when Roadblock talks about his past life. It's glitch as hell, but fits the character nicely. Just little things like they are able to elevate Retaliation above the more easily disabled guard. You see, from the gender, the characterization element is subsequently HFI and infective. How Lady J wakes about how hard it is to be a woman in the military, while she to reveal a sexy tone, thumbs to come, but at least it is there to a greater extent than it was in the first movie. The Swens spring it all. Day, of course. Along with the Medicare acting performances, visually, I think it does a good job. The scale of CGI use is the way down from the last one, with Retaliation offering for more up-closing action stuff and limited set piece. The big exception is the destruction of London, which is depicted rather than, but it's nothing that we have not seen before from any number of disaster movie. Everything else is much smaller in scale and used as an add-on to other stuff, like Beerly, Rocket Bike, or the ski from the mountaintop. Won't stay. There's a decent camera, work lots of colors. There's a pretty seamless plant of really nice looking locals, from desert to Mons to the OD but somewhat endearing choice of, for summer as the final spot, the action. Seas are quite good. The alt in Pakistan is Blackneck. The helicopter attack is a good combination of bright flashes against black sky. The fire scenes between Roadblock and Furley are sloper knockers, and the fell in general is a good way to close it all off, with minor dudes and larger explosions. The best of the lot is the Ninja Comet in the mountains, which included a neat back and forth as the two opposing groups swart on climbing robs, while swimming F-Sliation is the kind of the movie that starts out to entertain with good reaction, and I think that is succeed in doing that musically. It's a psionic assault undone with the unexpected mix of techno-rap. Music, you see, is anything even regularly devoted to the United States military. Nothing too memorable here, but it has the right job. Is getting the tension up, and P.O. Sponding don't remember a note of it, how or of. So theme, obviously this is a shallow enough production, relatively speaking. So there really are not a whole lot of theme to be discussing. With that being said, I will give it a shot, with the one theme you can really see, which is the very little. It's nothing but retribution and revenge here. The overall plot of Cobra, seeking revenge of their failure to take over Thart in the first film. Storm Shadow seeks revenge on Zirin for killing his master just as Sneak. I seeks revenge for the same crime Roadblock wants to avenge. Duke Death, Lady J wants to stick it to her father, and around we go. It's basic stuffs, and not all of it lands very well, but it is present, adding just a little depth to the production. The Storm Shadow Zeron 1 properly has the best potential to be something better. How often do you see a story about a bad guy justifiably seeking revenge, but only gets introduced past the halfway P and seems to have wreck content? Significant part of the first movie. The list stew is very definition of rushed, so that's no good. The Roadblock one is pretty light on substance in many respects, but improved the fight scenes between him and Fairly. Why not have Fairly at the McCarr, where Duke D, to a degree overall. I cannot say that G.I. Joy Retaliation is a good movie, of course. All the film I have seen this year I ranks quite low, but it is not the bad, not really. It has good KN use of CGI coherent plot and some half-decent performances from the better actors, but it also had a Lee stripped a whole lead of Medicare cost, members plenty of plot holes, and lots of random, unappealing elements. Retaliation is never going to be viewed as a classic anything, but I would still recommend it for the reason that I left the S, my entertained. I didn't turn off my brain, and I recognize the flaw. But it's a fun movie that should make you love on occasions and enjoy some really good action on others. Walking into G.I. Joy Retaliation and expected a serious and deep plot is like walking into Burger King expecting a gourmet meal, while the target onus of Retaliation is 13 years old. Boys, it's Sue. Them perfectly fawns of Kick Tatum will be displayed in the sequel to 2009, Rise of Cobra. Tatum C is killed off in the first 20 minutes to set up. The plot Retaliation focuses on a huge nuclear disarmed summit set up by the U.S. president, who is actually a Cobra operative. The Jew are framed for the assassination of the fictional Pakistan president and are attacked by the Cobra forces inside the military. During the attack, Duke sacrifices himself to save the few remaining Jaws. Rod Blocks, who is the remaining captain of the Jaw, Alijay and Flint not in the attack with Snock SI and newly recreate Jins. The Fogive, Joe seek help from founding members. Joe, Colton Retaliation truly leaves up to the franchise history. It's action-packed, fast-packed, with Hasnig as the film's main draw point in it. Spectacular use of CGI. The high-intensity action scenes are masterfully created and rented by the computer. Wizards at Industrial Light and Magic, we were responsible for such hits as The Prices of the Caribbean and Star Trek One scene that showcases this is an ominous cliffside fight between Snack Eyes and Jinx as they fight a clan of mountain ding ninjas, all while repealing from stropes of the Himasak's eyes rung along the side of the sheer cliffs, slicing the ropes of the Senma. And you can hardly tell that it is a computerized at all. The use of live actors blind perfectly, with the animated giving a sense that the action is real. One thing that really distracts from Retaliation's performance is the seeming endless blot holes and a forced revenge soup pot between rival Snake Eyes and Storm Shadows, for example. It is a huge secret that the president is not actually the president. But when the Joe survives the attack in the beginning, they come to the Saint Retaliation that they were betrayed by a fake presentant. The Ninja Revenge storyline also feels like it was thrown in the last minute just to fill space at the end of the day. The best advice I have for seeing G.I. Retaliation is check your brain at the door and enjoy yourself. The film knows it's not a serious Xantic experience, and that's why it works so well. Now let's talk about the mean cost biography. Shortly, Dan Jensen, BN, by 1972. Her California U.S. is an American professional wrestler and actor whose charisma and athleticism made him a success in his B field. Jason was born into a wrestling family. His maternal grandfather, High Chief Peter Mafia, emerged on the professional scene in the 1960s and 70s. Jason Father Solman, Rocky Johnson, parked the American regional wrestling circuit and boxed in. 1974, he was sparring partner of God for men, then preparing for the Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali. However, the younger John initially preferred the Greed Ron to the Mid. He was a standout high school athlete and played on the 1991 NCAA championship football team at the University of Miami. Bachelor of George Studies, 1995. After injuries shot his career in the Canadian Football League. He turned to wrestling, gifted with a remarkable combination of size, speed, and eligibility, as well as impeccable microphone skills. Jay Emmett for Wrestling Federation, WWF debut in 1996, as Rocky Mafia, a name that paid tribute to both his father and his grandfather. He was heavily promoted as a face, and after just a few months of exposure, Jason captured the WWF Integral title. The aggressive push triggered a backlash from fans. However, and subsequent storyline saw the Rocky Maivia persona sideline in favor of the Rock and unapologetic heel. They turn led to the increased popularity. The Rogue engaged in a series of high-profile feud with the biggest stars in the WWF and captured the first of several World Championship titles in 1908. The brave champ that Jason exhibited in his in-ring monologues translated smoothly to the silver screen, and his appearances in The Mummy Returns snuggled a new stage in his career. Although John was neither the first nor the last professional wrestler to be CED by Hollywood, he was easily the most successful. He followed The Mummy Returns with The Scorpion King and The Rundown 2003 and 2004. He left the ring to turn his attention to acting full-time. Jensen's letter film include test and field action fare such as G.I. Joy, Retaliation, Pain and Gain, and fourth installments of the Fast and Furious series, Fast 5 2011, Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, and The Fate of the Furious. He also appeared in The Family Entertainment, The Game Plan 2007, Tooth Fairy 2010, and Journey to the Mysterious Island 2021. Jason then was cast in The Ritual, Geek mythology figures in Hercules. He played a fair fighter dealing with a cataphoric earthquake in the action film San Andreas 2015. And in 2016, he started opposite comedian Kevin Hart in the buddy comedy Central Intelligence. Jess Lederon provided the voice of Adomont. In Moana 2016, an animated film by Disney in 2017, he started in Biwawat, a comedy based on the TV series about Lifu and Jimmy Welcome to the Jungle, which was adapted from a children's book by Chris Van Allbark. The next year, Jay played a father who goes to a great heist to save his family from a burning building in the action movie Skyscraper. He then co-starred with Jason Statham in Fast and Furious, present Hobson Shaw, a spinner from the long-running franchise, and took the lead role in Genji. The Next Level, both 2019, are sequel to the 2017 film. In 2021, he starred with Emily Blunt in Jungle Cruise, an action comedy based on a theme park side. That year, Jason also appeared as a FBI profiler, chasing art thieves in Red Notice. He credited from 2022 included Black Adam, a DC Comics superhero movie, Jazz. In the various television projects in 2013, he hosted the Really television series, The Hero and Elstead, and Ballots 2015 Q9, an HB comedy series about the farmer football PR who becomes a financial advisor to other sports stars. Jason then created and hosted the Really TV series, The Titan Games, which featured a variety of athlete competition. He later appeared in J-Rock, a comedy series about his life. The next main character is Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis by 1955. West Germany is an American actor best known for his performances in blockbuster action films, particularly the Die Hard series. Willis was born in West Germany, where his father was stationed at the American military base, and the family moved to New Jersey in 1957. After high school graduation, he took a series of odd jobs before studying theater at Montclair State College. Later Montclair State University. He dropped out of college and moved to New York City, where he began his acting career with both Broadway roles and appearances in television commercials. Willis had a number of small films role in the early 1980s before he was hired as a vice-cracking detective opposite Sab Stifford in the television sitcom Moonlighting 1985 to 18 Times. The show made Willis a household name and helped to launch his film career in the action theater. Die Hard 1988, Phyllis Porter, the sickle but good mature New York City police detective John McClone, who finds himself embroiled in a terrorist attack on a Los Angeles office building. The film was a major box of his success and helped establish Village as a leading action hero. It also spanned The Secret Die Hard to 1990, Die Hard with a Vengeance 1995 in Live Free or Die Hard 2007, and A Good Day to Die Hard 2013. Willis took roles in a number of violent and darkly comedic films, including P.O. Fiction 1994, in which he played a professional boxer who crosses a mobster after getting to throw a fight. 12 Monkeys 1995, about a kid sent back in time to investigate a virus that devastated humankind. And The Fifth Elect 1997, a visually impressive SED action film. Will he continue to act in large-budget action films, including Armageddon and Tears of the Sun, Willis. Also appears in comedic, including The Whole Nine SUS in 1999. He started in The Sixth Sense as a schist to console a child who claims to see dead people. The drama, which was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, was a critical and commercial success. Willis read with Shimon on the Supernatural, H.R. Unbreakable, 2000 Village. Subsequent films include The Steyer's Sin City, which was adapted from Frank Miller's graphic novel series, the thriller 16 Blocks, and the bi-comedy Cop-Out 2010. He also appeared in the action franchise Red 2010 to 13, and as a retired CIA agent, and in the expendable 2010 TO2. As an Action 1, the L series brought together several agent gangs of the gender among various other roles in 2012 of a lonely cop in this mystical Monner Kingdom, a time-traveling hitman in the sci-fi thriller Looper, and a professional gambler in the comedy drama. L, the favorite GI Retaliation, released the following year, provided another rock action role for the Polier actor in 2014. V reprised the Sin City role in the sequel, Sin City Our Dame to Killer. He played a mercenary in Beverlingen comedy, Rock the Cap Spa 2015, and a kidnapped farmer spy in the action flake Extraction 2015. Village Letter started in the 2018 remake of Deathfish, a 1974 action film about a father who becomes a villain after he is attacked in Glass. 2019, he reprised his role as a Scotty Guard superhero from Unable. His other film from 2019 included the comedy Between Two Fans and Motherless Brine, a crime drama set in the 1950s. Over the next AAL started in a string of action movies that include Breach 2020, Out of Death 2021, and A Day to Die 2022. Village Mez Broadway David in 2015, appearing as an adaptation of Stephen King novel Mystery. He portrayed a writer aged captive by an obsessed fan in 2022. It was announced that Willis are stepping away from his career after he was dissed with Asia, a disorder that impaired expression and comprehension of language. The following year, his family announced that the actress' condition has progressed, and that he was suffering from focal dementia. The next main character is Channing Tatum, Channing Toon Barn, April 26, 1980. Kamen Alama J is an American actor and dancer who is best known for his portrayal of Magic Milan, a young man navigating the world of exotic dancing in 3 films: Magic Meek, DXL, and Magic Meek. Last STS notice for his vidi, Tatum also had success with a number of other movies, including the comedies 21 Jump Street and its sequel, 22 Jump Street, and such action thrillers as G.I. Joy, The Rise of Cobra, 2009 Early Life. Tatum, the son of Glenn Tatum, and Kay Tatum was raised in the working-class family. They live in the South, moving from Alabama to Mississippi. And then when he was a teenager to Florida, an athletic child, he tries his hand at several spots, including Great Run, football, and eventually was awarded to scholarship to G State College in West Virginia. He dropped out before graduating, however, and took a series of jobs in fields, including constructions and sale at age 19. Tatum began working as a striper and heel tar on a modeling career representing such companies as Abami and Fish and Call and Gabbana. This lead in short order to appearances in commercial, including sports for Monday and Pepsi. He was also hired for music videos, making his T-bit in Ricky Martin. She Banks in 2000. These early FS helped. Autumn developed professional-level dancing skill, despite having never received formal training in 2004. Tatum made his first appearances in a TV series, playing an aspiring rare in an episode of CSI Miami. His big screen T-bit occurs the next year when he portrayed basketball player Jackson Style is the Simmel L. Jackson vehicle. C started a Weld sports drama. Rules is a guide to recognizing your saints, and She is the Man followed in 2006, as did It starred on as Taylor Gake in the box office. Hit Step Up in the Ultra dance drama. T played a young man who replied just in trouble before meeting and falling in love with Nora Clark. A ballet student played by Gina Dawn, life mimic art as Demon, and Tatum began dating, eventually marrying in 2009. Tatum returned for a cameo in 2008 sequel, Step Up to the Streets, a starring of subsequent films, Kamum Tantum Place in Hollywood. He showcases his dramatic skills in the V-drama Stop Loss 2008 and AMM's Public Enemies 2009. A Beak About Ganger, John Lincoln, starring Johnny Depp and Christian Bale in The Sacrifice. Thriller G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Tatum played Duke, a special operative. He repressed the rule in the 2013 SQL G.I. Joy Retaliation. In 2010, he branches out into Rome, comes starring with Amanda Sate in Dear John, and adoption of a Nicholas Sparks novel. Now let's talk about the box office performance of the movie G.I. Joy Retaliation. The knives were out in Hollywood for G.I. Joe Retaliation back in 2012, when Paramount surprised everyone, including Dr. John Joe, by announcing it was putting back the release by 9th month from 19 June 2012 to the end of March 2013. At the time, there was the usual Hollywood smokescreen to be at that MS. The official line was the studio needed more time. Time on the 3D conversion varies. In fact, executives were scrambling to reshoot and expand Gunning TM's role, Tatum Chemistry, where Dan Jensen is one of the best things about his actual quite decent sequel to The Hideout Procedures, 2009's G.I., The Rise of Cobra, and Test LR was Obsess. Then Resar character died in the opening. Minutes that's understable. Titan is a charmer and audience love him. So do calibrators, as anyone who saw the late F. Love in the White House Dawn. Core Jimmy Fox on Jimmy Scammer's Last Night talk show will attest to Just Love's score, successive with The View and 21 Jump Streets, and you don't kill off a star in the first act. So Tatum has a bigger role now. And the $1.2 million result over the weekend was the second big St. Three Day Easter weekend launched at the North America box office following Clash of the Titans in 2010, with $61.2 million factoring in Retaliation's four-day launch that kicked off last Thursday. The film stands at $51.7 million. That's in $130 million worldwide. The official line is the movie cost $130 million to produce. Let's make it real and boost the figure to $160 million and throw it a minimum $80 million for marketing. And that take us to $240 million. Even at the threshold, the movie is looking good. The same cannot be said for The Host, a new Stephanie Meyer adaptation. Starring Snore, Ron, and distributed by Open Road, it arrives in 6. Place on $11 million in a dissing star. Taylor Pretty, on the other hand, remains WD, and his partner at Line Skater laughing all the way to the bank. His Temptation Confession of a Marriage Counselor open in 3rd place on a rock-solid $22.3 million, with a very promising A Carrier to come, judging by Pori TR Record on TV and DVD. Meanwhile, Harmony Noise deliciously rankly. Surprising Baker has crossed $10 million through AROR distributor, A24. What a way to start. From a new contributor that can only be good news for the spy market as handed of movies. Just for attention is the NLI Trouse North America market. Each month, North American Top 10 to 9/31 March 2013 movies. GI Retaliation, $41.2 million total, $51 million. The Crud, $26.5 million total. $80 million GI Joy captures $10.5 million the day. G Retaliation was again the top gun at the domestic box office. Thursday, bringing an estimated $10.5 million from 3,619 locations. Paramount SQL to the 2019 actioner Steering Canning Tantum D. Jessam and Bruce Willis is on track for a 4 days haul of $50 million stated after earning at an S score. With odds, the first installment's S scores was B-plot budget as $130 million GI to expand to 53 date and day market Friday, ring 65% of the international arena, and should cross the 100 million V by the end of the weekend. 3D Pick co-producer by BGM, and Sky is also playing at 302 IMX locations domestically. Other new releases Friday include Op Row, The Host and the Taylor P. Pick, Temptation from LC Fox, Dreams, Work Animations, Recruits, should continue to flick with families. Just Easter Vegan F projected high. 20 million star sophomore framed the 3D Tez, which debuted to 43 domestically proved, equally feeling overseas, with a current worldwide total of $133 million in limited release. Focus feature drama, The Place Beyond on the Fines open in the New York and La Friday, while If's Room 2037, The Do on Stanley Cobry, The Shining Bows in Gome after a 9th month's delay. G. Joe Retaliation, DevOp to the top spot. At the box office, the action field staring. DT The Rock, Jason Bruce Willis, and Kay Tatum as the gun-toting military toys brought to life merch into the #1 position at the weekend box office, earning $41.2 million according to studio estimated Sunday Retaliation. Open Wednesday at midnight, which helped bring a domestic total to $51.7 million according to The Hollywood Reporter. The film opened with $132 million at the worldwide box office, one of the highest figures ever of the Easter holiday. Paramount postponed the sequel to 2019 G Rise of Cobra last May from its original June opening day to convert the film to 3D. The last-minute change come just weeks after Battleship, another movie based on a Hesper toy, sank at the box office at the time. Paramount had already begun it advertising campaign for Retaliation. It's endly vindicating the decision, said Da Harris, the studio has, of distribution. Anytime you make those sort of moves, people always assume the first the trest. I seen this movie is a long time ago in 2D, and the movie workout is 2D. It's trying to be Scander. List the movie is intended to be enjoyed as a big action spectacle. After debating in the top spot last weekend, the 3D animated prehistoric comedy, the CRWs from DreamWorks Animation and 20th Century Fox slips to the number 2 spot with $26.5 million in its second weekend. The film features the voices of Nicolas Sage, Emma Stone, and Catherine Keener as a cave family on the hunt for a new home. Among the other new films this weekend, Taylor Paris Temptation, Staring Journey, Smooth Bell, and Lens cross open above expectations at number 3 with $22.3 million by the science fiction adapts, and the host featuring Sanror and Max Ends and Jay Cabell as character from the Stephanie Meyer. Nova landed at number 6 in its debut weekend with a modest 11 million star. Overall, the weekend box office was on par with last year when The Hunger Games continued to dominate in its second weekend of release with $58.5 million after a slow start. Hollywood's year-to-date revenue are still 12% behind last year, heading into Max. Month with the summer movie season unofficially kicks off with Iron Man 3 on May 3. It's getting on back on track after many weekends of downtraining. Box office said Paul Darian, box office analytics for Hollywood.com. Last weekend was a turning point with the strength of the CRWs, and Olympic was fallen, doing better than expected. We are heading toward the summer movie season on solid footing. It's been a tough year. So far, Retaliation Paramount now says that GI that opened with a global gross of $132 million, including previews, which is plus 35% ahead of the world we open in for the first installment. The studio requires it. International estimate to $88.3 million based upon Saturday. Excellent play for what is the best international opening for 2013. It surfaces Ozer the Great and Powerful by 15%. Despite only opening in 75% of the world, defined domestic figures are up slightly, 41.2 million for the 3-day Easter weekend, because Saturday came in stronger than expected with a 4. One Better Today comes of $51.7 million. Exist polling of audience showed that 68% was male and 59% over age. 25 until now, no title had even cracked the $70 million ved overseas. This year, the Seals International opening was almost double the disappointing fast installment GI, The Rise of Cobra, for the same territories this weekend. Ross represented about 75% of the world, with major territories like China and Japan. Yet to open Retaliation was number 1 in the overflowing majority of release charities, including Russia, Korea, Mexico, Germany, Australia, and France. Key international results include Russia, 11 million, Korea, and Mexico, 6 million. Germany and UK, 4.5 million each for IMX domestic cross. 4.8 million on 303 screens for this digital-only run, while international hit 2.35 million or 78 screens for 30K screen. All in all, a good foreign result for co-financier MGM and David Ellison. Skydance production also for director John Chu, who made the Lee from Dance and Music Enter project, like the STA franchise and the Justin Viper. Never Say, Never Concern documentary to this. Auctioneer Retaliation box office performance, by which we are talking dominates weekend box office, sequel on the way. Paramount Picture are moving ahead with the plan for a third G.I. Joy after the series. Second Stet, G.I. Retaliation, made more than $40 million domestically this weekend and earned the top international single, being box office gross of 2013. U after a $132 million opening for G.I. Joe. Retaliation Paramount said it will move forward the third go. Tweeted Friday's Andrew Stewart earlier this year that came on the heels of a $41.2 million weekend in the U.S. and $132 million worldwide, second only to us at the great and powerful $48 million worldwide gross. But much more of at money came from the U.S., so Paramount is still sticking to a record. Second 2013 weekend as G.I. Joy also had the second best Easter weekend, opening ever behind 2010. Death of the Titans last week movie. The Crudds took in $26.6 million this weekend for the Tool spot, giving the movie a strong first 2 weeks the studio have been hoping for. That since tracking on the movie had been uneven into last week's release, Taylor Pest Temptation came in at, followed by Olympus Has Fallen and O'er, The Great and Powerful. The last notable film of the week was The Host, the new sci-fi adaptation of the book by Stephanie Meyer, the author of To Light the Movie FP, bringing in only $1 million and taking the spot DSC to Hard Stars to Ran, whose Order of the Seven was recently accessed by Disney. Because it paid too much money, maybe we can get a row opposite. Turus, which Who John Cutter and Battleship are back up to. Back money losers last weekend. G-Joy Retaliation is the movie, like, who any holiday that sees families conducted together and display-seeking activities when they don't have to talk to each other for 2 hours. Then Easter weekend had a strong pump at the box office. G.I. Retaliation this weekend, $41 million with G. Joy the Rise of Cobra, making some money but clearly not inspiring much atheism. Paramount has gone for a pretty notable overhaul for the series with G Retaliation, an unusual mixture of escapades and reboot. The new film does content storyline and a few characters from the first movie, but also has some huge difference, both in terms of cost and GRW, and in the overall approach. The early scene established a close bond between Duke and Red Block, 2 members of the Joy team, who had up a squad, whose members including Snake Eyes, Flint, and Jade J. But when the Joes are framed and UED-only Roadblock had a few others are left to try to find those behind it and clear their name. The biggest thing G Retaliation has G for it, that unlike G.I., The Rise of Cobra, this film feels like a true G.I. story. One that more Philly-impressed rules gone are the Power Sue, that Joy more last time around, that F completely out of place. There is some cool futuristic touch used here, but the characters themselves are not bouncing around through streets in the midst of battles. Oh, and there are more Portline Inu that involves Duke, or any other Joy, being best friends with Cobra Commander, and Braun is being Cobra. Commander's sister and Duke's former fancy Cobra especially is, well, Cobra. As a longtime G.I. fans, it's hard not to smile seeing Cobra Commander complete with Silver Moss walk along flanked by Storm Shadow, and fairly followed by a group of Cobra Soar and Red Ninjas. The movie is unpoetic about the shoes of cod names and G.I. and Cobra terminology, and is basically saying, we know what you came for here. It is also a bit goofy, of course, which is part of the charm. As much as we love G growing up and have to expect that translating it into live action means pointing out some of the Loic corns of it all, that being the case, I cannot help but wish they had gone even further and also let the choice, like Cobra, wear uniforms more like their comic books counterparts. No, Lady Joy doesn't have a green outfit and baseball hat. And the only time Flint wears our beret, it's a key here. Everyone is wearing one, but we are so close to that. So maybe part 3, the characters are not exactly known, and we get just enough backstory and motivation to by, in most cases, to a couple of characters F, particularly U and Gay on the score, including Flint and Jinx. The letter of home gets a or 2, mentioning who she is, and then basically serve as snack-size sidekick for the rest of the film. She speaks only a little more than her mute mentor, but to see them in action is a thing of beauty overall. The action scenes as GI Retaliation are fun and exciting. Director JNU brings his own freedom to the film along with his background. Directing dance-orient movies, including 2 Steps, UPS installments, The Experience with Chography, and Fluxy, SS-Sin. Well, here particularly in the ninja scenes, the standout sequence, which has been understandably well featured in the trailer, is an MDOG free flight between Snake Eyes Jinx and a horde of red ninjas inspired by Lady H's famous Cyst issue of the 1980s G.I. Joy Marvel comics, with all participants swimming over a V-chest, slicing Dion and flipping along. It's a completely over-the-top and thrilling sequence that feels profitably bigger than life. The performances are mostly solid with everyone, John including seeming to be having a good time, paying a big-budget version of a kid's action figure. Showdown that also goes for Fist, who has a sporting role as the man who inspired the team, named General J. Colton. No is not giving the kind of great performance we have seen from him recently in films such as Looper and Moonrise Kingdom, but he also Klang is not bringing the obviously dash attitude Will can exude when he is not enjoying himself on project like Copart. The big negative on the action side here is Arzon A. I'm sure there was a kind of Tontino influence. This is so crazy. It might work attitude when costing the rape. Star-turned-actor was on the Roy comic book, Ninja Ved, called The Blind Master, but it just doesn't work. The scenes with Aret take the movie from charming goofy to just impressing campy. I'm guessing we're seeing a truncated version of this material as well as it's notable that much of his dialogue is used as voiceover with only a few shorts of AR at actually speaking his lines. MLE might vary on this, as some in the audience I saw G.I. Joy Retaliation, which seems to enjoy RC on a campy level, but for me it was just a big misfire, and I was just glad he only had a couple of scenes on the other end of the spectrum. AIM stage. And film actor Jonathan P. is a hell of a lot of fun. As Zone, just anniversary. Technically plays Zone, too, but in a plot thread held over from the first film, the Master of Disco spends most of Retaliation looking like the U.S. president. And Parts is very funny as a president who can see and do what he wants without a care in the world. Also very enjoyable in a smaller role in The Shield. And just Toyd Wallen Goen as a Varden with some very notable prisons in his skin. Care one thing GI Relation was going for it throughout is a healthy sense of humor thanks to W.R. Roy. Try and Paul Rinn from Zombieland. G.I. Joy is, I'm sure many will be curious about the deputation of C.A. Commander with Joseph. Jordan Leavitt replaced by Luke Peabody and Robert Baker. Vice, in short, he's co-air commander, just as he should be. He looks like him, he acts like him. And the VI is stably evil villain, with a nod to Chris L. S. Weiss work on the Night animated series, but not as high-pitched Gation as Furley a movie, who made that little kids and grows up, who wants to. Journey back into their childhood, it's like an elate, expensive cosplay with big explosion and set piece, and enough for a thinking sense of H to let. You know, everyone is there to have a good time, all of which is to say, that if you are in the mood of seeing stuff blow up real good, this is for you. Lastly, I feel like I have to mention the 3D, especially given Gation, was given a last-minute delay in order to convert the film likely with an eye towards international distribution, where 3D is a much bigger deal than in the US. I hate that the film was delayed for the reason, especially given I am quite over 3D and always choose the 2D option when actually buying a ticket. The process screening I attended was in 3D, and I will say the conversion is quite well done. There are some using of the process was VAR shorts are fired. Things blew up and ninjas go flying towards you. So why I don't think you need to see it in 3D. It looked good if you do a real comic book adaptation. G.Joy is a real I.M. action actor film by Tim Flynn. G.I. Joy Retaliation reviews. Even which better characters are more talented. Cost of action stars and a more grounded and faithful approach to the mythos G.I. ration is still on overall. Disappointed film, you know why Gar Retaliation picks up some month after the image of the first film, Rise of Cobra, with Duke now leading the Allied packing. Joy Force alongside his best buddy Rod Block and talented squad mates like Lady J and parkour master Flint. Meanwhile, Cobra's master of Desu Zeron is still mating as the President of the United States Opposition of Power. He explodes in order to ambush and eliminate the Joy SC with the help of Cobra and forces family Zeron frees Cobra commander, and together they launch a scheme of fear consist. The remaining Chai members need all the help they can get, so they reunite with Snake Eyes, his P-Jinx, and seek out the main who first put the joy in G.I. Joy. Even with better characters, a more talented cast of action starts, and a more grounded and faithful approach to the mythos Gation is still an overall disappointing film. The cast alone makes it a better viewing experience than the first installment, but a paper-thin narrative and lackluster action sequence ultimately mark it as a half-cooked sequel and a sating strike on the franchise scorecard. Director John M. Joe never clearly has love for the G franchise, and in many ways nails down the aesthetic of the cartoon series. In terms of custom and vehicle design, characterization, and tone, this film feels more like G.I. translated into live action than Rise of Cobra Fox. Frustrated tech, bionic suits, and weaponry. Our Joy team also looks like a Kias military unit, filled with L-Light soldiers this time around, rather than a V the W arid and fresh, faced actors who looked somewhat out of place, getting dirty in a gunfight, while the interception of the source material is more accurate. Choose skills as a blockbuster. Directors are unfortunately not on the level needed to realize the interpretation properly. On-screen retaliation, since some pretty ambitious set-piece sequence, but on the whole chose skill with action. Sequence stops at a distraining shoots of actors holding big guns, shooting in every width direction at unseen force, all clearly contrary geography attributes. Are Snake Eyes that doesn't impress in a poster redemption world for a movie whose biggest set in Section G.I. Retaliation is found wanting with the exception of a skin. Few moments like the aforementioned Ninja Mountain Battle. The 3D upgrade is not worth it. It's a scam. Sorry, it's a shame, since Chu is one Tarkitor who has experienced with the format setup 3D, and never say never he can clearly do fun things with it, the mountain battle. But even with the quality post-conversion process with the film, does have the reality that the film was originally designed for 3D prevented it from doing anything all the lally in 3's dimension on a script level. Rise of Cobra looks positively Shakespearean compared to the story of Retaliation, which is to say, the sequel to hopefully short in-depth characterization and basic narrative development even for a G.I. Joy movie. This is especially surprising, considering what a unique signature writing to Pet Rise and Poik presented in the script for Zombieland. Then again, there are small traces for evidence through GI2 that P to the script once having been a fully realized narrative rather than the bare boar's hedge jobs leftover regard. God has a story. The question of studios in France looms large as one watches the Foos narrative, a revolving series of scenes split between the surviving Joe team, the Cobra Buddies, and Lycan Extras, Thomas Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow Ninja Drama. None of these aforementioned plots get any meaningful attention or development, rather than the movie constantly jumps between each thread, ignoring obvious logistical questions. How did we get here? What lead us here? And aiming virtually all of the character subplots that are hinted at early on. Meanwhile, the script is R, with heavy-handed expo, positional dialogue, and VI overs used to establish context and are pushed the various character toward their climatic cover engines, red herring and for SOHS leads. Nowhere the climate is under M and reflected, and there's ality little left at the end to inspire desire for further adventures. Back in 2009, I was somewhat excited to see what the studio has decided to do with the GI brand, as they had just come off a Luxor sequel to the film that proved making toys into movies could be successful. I am, of course, tearing to Transformer Revenge of the Fallen, which was a masterpiece in my eyes compared to what C.H. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, turned out to be in my original reviews. For the GI film that I started, that is the subtitle franchise one that I hope doesn't exactly happen unless they complete start over well after being delayed almost a year for what was said to 3D post-conversion, which they did. They did do, but also seems to be caught for Channing T, much blew up last year. So, let's take some time and add in a few more Tatum scenes. If you are a Tatum fan, and you are seeing this film simply to see him on the big screen, don't show up late. That's all I'm saying, on the other hand. If they were going to continue this franchise, they did at least go the route. I hope that might. With no mention of Journal Hawk or Ripard, the sequel seems to be able to continue the story of the first, with TDU leading a new team of Choi that still makes me love, and expectedly wiping the slate clean so as to introduce us to a few new character and get the ball rolling in a whole new light, so as this might actually turn into a profitable series of the film. The producers can keep on pumping out. The fact of the matter is that despite GI Retaliation being a better movie than its producers, it would have been hard not to be. It is still fairly cheese and goofy, and something only TW age boys will luckily have a lot of fun with. If you are a day over 13, you will likely see the gonif of it all, but still try to enjoy the fun it only periodically provides going into the film. I could hardly remember what happened in the first one, to be honest. I had only seen it the one time in theater when I was first released, and cared so little for it that I never revisited it. Despite knowing this one was coming up, truly I was hoping to give the film a fresh eye, and with the fun in conventional opening sequence, I thought they might be on to something good here. D. The Rock, Jensen is roadblock and second in command to the THS Do, with a team that includes Flunn are the guy that is intended to took like Tatham, DJ, and the eye candy with an attitude Lady J. After then, or Git turns on them and intend to wipe them out. It is up to these three to get back into the country and figure out why the president had seemingly gone mad. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there are dealings going on between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, but we are never really made to understand. But assume Snake Eye recruits Storm. Shadow's cousin Jinx from the training temple are, whatever you might call it, run by a blind master that apparently has a significant place in the history between those three. How this all figures into the main plot of the story has something to do with releasing the Cobra Commander and Destro, who have been imprisoned by Zone, imprison the president, as he has a developed plan to take over the world. All of this sound lackless, with the names making it much mayo. That's why I could not help but think as the film went on and gave in to me two complicated plot points that make it more converted than necessary. Still, it is able to build toward a rather sense conclusion that makes for a two-factory, if not forgettable, film. The main issue I have with the film is not that the content is cheesy, but instead that the makers of the film are unable to convey it in a way, or more specifically, in a tune that neither cognize that kind of film. This is a try a little harder to make the audience buy into the credibility of it all. I know that thought probably seconds completely ridiculous as any movie with someone named Storm Shadow or At Day playing a blind Kung Fu master, and it probably is not the most serious or credible material. But then again, you would likely think that about a film with Thorne Hitton as well, and they were able to make it work just fine. Instead, what new tractor John Chu has done after taking over for Stephen Sammons in Liar the Obus of CGI, and make the line SCS and fight, since a lat mood greedy, then as a slicky mid-over as they were in the streets of Paris. In the last one, Chu shows off his visual styles best when presented with a monumental task, such as staging a fight on the side of a mountain. You have seen bits of it if you have seen any tea for the films, but coming in right at about the middle of the PR hours and 50 minutes running time, this sequence is the best part of the film, and the closest to what kind of film. I imagine a G-Joy movie should be compared to this sequence. The rest of the fire scenes in the film feel somewhat blend, and don't build as well, but instead are rushed and mistily edited with a lot of quick cuts and angry or hard-face shots. The other end of the argument is that at least the deep THS kind of scenes coming GI Retaliation can stops to take a breath at any point. And when it does, it only to let loose some kind of Riddick stog, such as they are a rot with a zip code. The politics of the plot are some mundane, and the fight scenes are repetitive. The audience feel R out after the fight hours, which is why it's a good thing that the film has such a likable leading man with the infusion of Bruce Voge to boot. I never thought of The Rock as much of an actor, but since he has decided to let go of trying to be something is not, and moved on from laying on kiddie films to bring in a box office when he came back to the action gender with Foster, after following up a self-referential spot in The Other Guys, and followed it up by joining the Fast Five Assemble as well, hoping on the journey to the center of the art franchise. And now this one, it was clear the man had a plan for word domination. He was in the underrated Stitch last month that showed he had some range in a restricted, more dramatic role, and will be in Mel, B-Black comedy Pain and Gain, next month before following it up in May and the 6th Fast and Furious film. Despite the fact This film will probably be the most of the 4 he'll appear in ever 4th month. He still has enough charisma to allow the audience a good time watching him kick ass and defend the great. GSFR, his supporting cast, could have used a little V, while the writers tried to give Adriana Pick a backstory and a purpose. She is literally used an eye candy in every other scene, so that Roadblock may infiltrate whatever he needs to infiltrate. As for Flint, he is given absolutely nothing to do, but look around and look good. He was likely brought on for this looks, but we never finds out if he can actually act, due to the fact I cannot remember a single thing the guy did in this movie except for the view hit at a characteristic early on where they possibly considered making him the rebellious type R. Park. Displays fine fighting skills as he returns to the role of Snake Eyes. But you cannot judge him on anything else while both Honlik and Young are barely given any lines, but are instead inserted into the script when for the fight to call for shorts. Good thing Bruce Willis shows up for a handful of scenes here to take some of the weight off. Mr. Johnson thought I wish they would have saved this. Came appearances as a great surprise instead of spoiling it in the trailers that alone would have made me enjoy the movie much more. But I cannot say I was really disappointed by it, as I can hardly remember much of it a day or later. The plot of the movie is that after Cobra Commander takes control after United States Coordinate, the G finds that they have enemies in high places. This brings down a deadly damage. Upon our heroes leaving the Joy under fire in order to fight back, they must band together to fight a battle that places the entire Earth in jeopardy. What do you do when you have an epic sales action movie that didn't just audience like it was supposed to? Well, for starters, you could add Dan John to the cast, like Universal did for Fast 5. He helped Renate, the retired franchise, thanks to his solid on-screen presence. Of course, he is exactly that. Paramount did for their franchise. Hopeful has, pro-based, featured G. Joe Retaliation. This slick and stylish, and still a little time, summer blockbuster is an improvement over the Fast, for several reasons, the first being a stronger cast. Many of the original actors are gone. Beside Channing Tatum, Ray Park, Arnold Vlo, Jonathan P.E., and Bang Honley, all of whom stuck around, and the chemistry between the actors is infinitely better. This time around, Johnson and Tata make for a match meet in action flick heaven. Especially since the chist between Tatum and Sean Miller in the first film was non-existent. The story here is not terribly surprising, pretty standard for a movie such as this. Some bad guy wants to destroy the F and blow everything up. To gain supreme power, it is always fun to see this kind of glitch mocked in other films, like Despicable Me or recently on an episode of American D. Of course, any self-respecting G fan is well aware of Cobra Commander as well as Zeron. Then you have Storm Shadows and the Fantastic Race, Trevon tearing things apart as Furley, definitely giving our heroes a run for their money. Loyalties are tested, and one character questions his own beliefs, and London, England is royally screwed thanks to a purposely deadly weapon. The good news is that this feels very much like what you would hope for a Gay Joy live action. Features director John M.J.U. really brings this sequel to life with wall-to-wall action that is most definitely bigger and better than Fast, starting with an early sequence where several members of Joy are ambushed in a surprisingly brutal attack. The VUS is shift and doesn't feel as clunky as it occasionally. It is the first time around most impressive, is one thrilling set piece involving Storm Shadow and Snake, which take place on the side of snow-covered mountain. And last I forget, Stepson, kicking all esh of ass in one hell for an exciting prison break. Aside from Stemson, it is great to see Mr. Bruce Willis again in a flick, which is more fun than this other recent franchise, ENT. There is a real sense of comedy with the cast that also include the lovely and R.E.I. Pelly, the always terrific Walter C. Orr, and of course Jonathan P. as the president. Most of the film reasons around Johnson, however, and he was absolutely the perfect choice for G.I. Joy. He is a natural at playing a hero and clearly is built for it as well. He also has the ability to work well with others, thanks to a believable bond he shares with Tatum as well as the rest of the cast. It is a noticeable improvement before writing this. I revisited Rise of the Cobra, which admissibly is a guilty player for me, the problem with the first film including zero chemistry. Between the films, lead questionable dialogue and end special effect are obvious. Yet it worked for me, and on an almost camp level call it nostalgia. But watching the original film was the cinematic version of reverting back to childhood with Retaliation. CH and improves are many of the problems that occurred in Cobra, making for a much better movie. Going experience the script here by Reedes, and Paul Ring adds a little more far into the mix. And while it may not win any words, it is definitely more AK to the source material. Your inner child may have fun with this flick, but unlike the first, Retaliation is exciting enough to let your grown-up self in on the enjoyment and not feel as guilty about it. GJY Retaliation is also visually a better film, even with the post-conversion 3D, which mostly adds to the film. Clearly, this spends some time on the process, and the end result is all the better for it. It does suffer from far too much CG, but it's freaking G. Joe, so what else would you expect from a HRO-based future film? Retaliation has the popcorn film of Rise of the Cobra, and even a few of the FS, including a predictable plot, as well as some silly dialogue Shakespearean. This is not what is. How is exactly what the first movie should have been: an exciting and exclusive action. FXA. It features a film cast, including the dynamic duo of the man Johnson, as well as a kick-ass Stone. And most importantly, it features a nice balance of B and H without taking itself too seriously, as sacrificing the thrill of it all. This is what fans of GF fans were hoping for. It's getting to the point that she should have just done Jensen Short at all the big summer blockbuster at need of repair. You cannot go into the movie thinking it will be anything other than stupid fun if it's done right. The film, based in toys, can be so dumb it's entertaining, and that's exactly what it is. Most of the heroes from the first film are gone with, only Channing Tatum returning. Tha is a sporting role. The Rock Adrian PL and DJ Kona are the new leading Jaws. The film packs more Hymir than before, which is smart, because the film probably would not have worked without knowing how silly it is. The characters are still one-dimensional, but it's nice to see some backstory given to some of the major players. The star of the film, however, is the action. The action sequences are thrilling at top-notch. The Eastern-inspired FS are definitely more entertaining than the Western martial art is just more entertaining than Gunfire Guys. The mountaintop fight between Snake Eyes and the Red Ninjas is the highlight. It's a 9-minute AOG-less sequence than Never SPS moving. You then is Cobra, and their plan arcaded throughout the film. But in the third act, they became clear, and it's actually kind of clever. Also, Bruce Fiss makes a nice chemo as a P.L. Bess. As always, this is not a great film, but it is fun. Now, let's talk about the full cast and crew of the movie, G.I. Joy Retaliation. The movie is directed by John M. Joe. Writing credit goes to Petri Paul. Von R. cast Dan Jensen as Roadblock, Jonathan P. as President, Lee Bangan as Storm Shadow, Along as Jinx R. Tempson, as Fairfly DJ Catron as Flint Adriana, Picky as J. Ching Tatum, as Duke Ray Park, as Snake Eyes, Luke Brasi as Cobra, Commander Balin Gogan at Von Arnold Voso as Zone, Joseph Meslow as Moose, Nick Erican as President, Picture Double R as Blind Master Name, Eli as Pakistani President, R.I. NATO as Chief Advisors, Mad Corral as Soke, Douglas M., Griffin as Doctor as Chief of Staff, Bruce Willis as General J.W. Colton, Jam Kill as Jams Kilran, Hanson as Grunt R. Davis as Stoop, Nathan Dingy as J. Storm, Shadow Lee as Intent, Alana Justin as Intent, Elia Lowe as Russian Leader, Dinton as UK Leader, Robert Rattini as Israeli Leader, Marcelo Tober as French Leader, Jams Lee as Chinese Leader A Meta as Indian Leader, Asu as Northern Korean Leader, Raja as Indian Expert, Tiffany Lale as British Expert, Terry Dale Parks as Greeter, Juhoni as North Korean Captain, Aimu Amami as Chairman, DHA as Kim Jong's nephew, Cree Wongs as J.Y. Benjamin as System Officers, Adam Fear as Weapons Officer, Jim Palmer as Clutch Amin Joseph as Comra Secret Service, R.E.I. Herides as Cobra Secret Service, Grant Goodman as First Son, Mikolo Viadeli as Archangel Joe, Berlin Plar as Roadblock Stouter, Amaya Plar as Roadblock Stouter, Dustin Costin as Comrade Troper, Mel Hooves as Cobra Troper, Allison H. as UK St. Rand, Febra as Indian Football Settler, G. Rhodes as Reporter. Now let's talk about the producer of the movie, G. Barber. As executive producer, Roger Baum, as executive producer, Lorenzo D., as producer, David Ellison, as executive producer, Harbor W. Gaines, as executive producer, Donna Goldberg, as executive producer, Eric Hossam, as executive producer, Linda Pinney, as associate producer, Paul Schock, as executive producer, Stephen Sewers, as executive producer, music by Henry Jackman, cinematography by Stephen F. Bond, editing by Roger Bond and Jim May, casting by Rona Chris, production designed by Andreo Magazine, art direction by Luke Freern, Alan Hook, Scott Peachy, Tom Ranschroer, said direction by Ron Cron, Kathali Jesse, costume design by Luch Bing Batch Makeup Department, Martin Estelle as special makeup artist, Gloria Blind as additional makeup artist, Andrea Bowman as hairstylist, Diana Dills as hairstylist, Adam GAA as assistant hairstylist, Maros Khanna as hairstylist Leon, as graphic designer specialty and Tatos, Thomas Ard as special makeup artist, Tim Jarvis as special makeup offer technician, Natasha Eltick as wig maker, Jack Larice as makeup artist, Rita PLO as key hairstylist, Rami SAA as makeup artist, production management KBY Adams as executive in charge of production, finance Vincent Ostino as unit production manager, second JIT St. Pony as production manager, Mountain Unit Sarah Flame as production supervisor, Darren Hicks as protection supervisor, Oi Aishi as production manager from Japan, Jason Pitt as production manager IMAX version, Richard Sterling as post-production supervisor, Ralph B.R. as executive in charge of production, second unit director or assistance director, Dave Casper as fast assistance director, additional photography, Stephanie Tonsina as assistance director, Alan M. Hears, as second assistance director, James Lara, as first assistance director, Cam Lom, as additional second assistance director, Phil Phipp, N.E., as second assistance director, G-Son, P.A., as second assistance director, Art Department, Alexandra Odyssey as Skelet, John B. Cleverly III as Journal Fordman, although 2009 GEE. The Rise of Cobra was a relatively successful action. Blockbuster, most of the film's main cast has no interest in reprising their role for future installments. That means saying goodbye to Christopher Alliston, Sienna Miller, Joseph Jordan, Livett, and Real Nicholas, and by killing Ken, Tom Duke, along with most of the other Joys within the opening few scenes. 2013 Gijay Retaliation act almost like a soft rebo by pushing a new hero front and center. In John Stam's Roadblock, Retaliation's story is relatively straightforward, with Roadblock and the few remaining members of his team attempting to stop Cobra's latest plot to gain what domination through a puppet U.S. president, but for fans of the classic heroes from Hasbro's Skyline, the Paramount movie managed to deliver a solid set of flashed-out character arc alongside the hyperactive fight scenes. Here's are some of the characters, and up by the time ration rolls, credit, and what the future of the GI franchise looks like in BTV and film. Snack S and Storm Shadows conflict goes back to their childhood, where we briefly saw in the rise of the CRA Hard Master murder, in the sole reason that Snake Eye stroke a WO of silence, because Hard Master had the closest thing he had to a father he took hard, M-Death to hard, because he was the only person who helped him make something of his life after Sneak Eyes found himself homeless in Japan. Then Lee Sneak Eyes, St. Shid Rolly is based around the falsehood that Storm, Shadow murdered Hard Master over this found his for Snake Eyes Storm. Shad's stand and aggressive nature means he never tried to define himself from these actions, either adding further to the idea that he's a cold-blooded murderer as he explains it. He is lost in his anger. It's possible to feel so much late. You stop feeling it at all, like a fish, not knowing it's in water, he says. On the opposite side, Snake Eyes is so determined to settle his vendetta that he pushes himself to the limit whenever facing that enemies. So when the revelation comes that it was Cobra villain Saron that killed Hard Master, the strife between the two, Strike Varus is instantly diffused. The TRO being covered allows the two to find peace, and the pair team up in a final fight against Kamra is the first step towards repairing their fractured friendship road. Brock's entire arc is about getting Gistic for his fallen comrades following the devastating Milestrike in the film's beginning, but it seems like his mission has only just begun with the sequel bait of Retaliation's ending. Roadblock's need for revenge is one of the main themes driving the film. TR quickly realizes that he cannot make things right without his team. He has to lean on them to ensure their mission goes smoothly. Gang with the belief that he doesn't need allies, but throwing out the rule book means calling on a uprising figure, Bruce Willis, Journal Joe Colton, the original G.I. Joy. The general conclusion is a way of pushing the team forward, is uncovering Zorn as the fake president, as well as giving longtime fans the classic Hasper character in live action. Of course, unfortunately, Roadblock tease for revenge is not quenched just because the Joys serve the day. Again, Cobra Commander is still out there after escaping Force Summit in the heat of battle. It makes sense why the filmmaker didn't let John Johnson Hero get to face off with the villain in the fell of Retaliation. Clearly, they were seeing it for a dramatic climax. In the originally planned third film, the fight would have likely ended with Roadblock shooting the villain using General Patton's gun, which Colton gives him at the end of Retaliation in appreciation for its efforts. It's a moment that LS into the overly patriotic nature of the franchise, but also serves as a reminder of Roadblock, that he is not alone in his fight, and that he has the rest of his team serving along with him. The G franchise has not had the best luck in the 8 years since Retaliation. Stab-it, Dan Jensen has always maintained that he'd like to return for a third film, which was his one title, G.I. Joy, ever. Vent, and there was even a plan to cross G.I. Joy over with Paramount Transformers series. Neither Evervolent are the crossover metalized, but the franchise has taken a surprising new director from a report from German director Peter S.E., which will slowly focus on Snake Eye's original story. The prequel will see crazy rich assassin star Henry Rosen as the Raw Ninja and will resolve around his conflict with Andre Storm Shadow in Japan, hopefully with the raids as hard. Master Snake S.I. will have some extremely satisfying stunt work in the film as the emotional backstory, which was only touched on in G.I. Retaliation. There's not too long to wait for the film either, as it arrives in October 2021. There's even more military madness on the VRA. A live-action G.I. Joy TV series centered on Lady Joy, who was played by Andrian Pickey in Retaliation, but with all the recast roles in the Snake Eyes films. It makes sense that the upcoming show will also pick a new actresses to bring Lady Joy to life on the small screen, because creator Eric Allison has a deal with Amazon Studios. It would not be surprising if the show arrives on Prime Video that could open the door to a harder and more violent story than the one featured in the crowd playing blockbuster movies. G.I. Retaliation came out in theaters on Friday, and although I have known for a while that it would not exactly be the sequel, I wanted it would be more of a with 80% new cost. I enjoyed it, Sellich, and have to say, I cannot wait for the next one these days. It's not a question of there's going to be a sequel. It's how many sequel are there going to be? Okay, let's take a step back and talk about why we all saw a trailer of the G sequel just about a year ago, but had to wait an entire year to watch it. GJ Retaliation was supposed to come out last year. More specifically, June 29th, 2012, but the stud delayed it until March 29th, 2013. And at the time, they got two reasons for the delay. They wanted to avoid the Avengers box office flow over smart move, seeing as it became the third highest grossing movie to date. And they wanted to convert some scenes into 3D because 3D movie ticket cost more to see, meaning the movie could be more profitable in foreign theaters. And if you have seen the movie, there were some fantastic scenes that were in 3D. So I guess those two pants are 100% valid, but they are only two of the three reasons that the movie passed L just under a year. The third reason being that just about 6 weeks before the June 29th, 2012 release date. The studio guard scores from their test screen is ranging from Medicore to bed. And the only thing the test audience liked about the film was the booty-booty relationship between Channing Tatum and Dan Jensen. But there was one problem: Tatum Kios got killed off in the first couple minutes. Now, it's a bit unusual, but not uncommon for movies to have the main character killed off, so a new character can be the hero. But the problem here was two different situations that work out well together. The studio thought Tatum was not a big enough star to carry the franchise on for a couple more sequels, and Tatum wanted to make other movies to better his career. So originally, Tatum part was about 10 minutes of the 110 minute, but now it's about 30 minutes. Another side note, the reshoot that only took a little over a week cost just about $5 million. This makes you think if it was worth it for those couple extra scenes with team. But according to the latest box office count, the GJ School is on top with just over $140 million on its opening weekend alone, since the movie budget was a little less than $130 million. This trouble for GI Retaliation has a similar parallel to the Rummers in 2009 that started GAR. The Rise of Cobra director Steven Sommers was fired from post-production by Paramount after test screening for the film results in The Loyal Course in the Study History. Those reors were shed down, but we are not completely irritated given the film's low V-redemption. However, things took a lot worse of G Retaliation from Screen Rant. The studio decided that they wanted to write a script where Dan Jensen could be the star and almost reboot the franchise with him at the lead, because while they were in pre-production and just about 3 to 4 of the We Done filming, the studio still believed that having Daz as the lead would have bombed at the box office wrong. Just about the time they finished filming and started promoting the movie, Tatham's Carer took off starring in 21 Jump Street in March of 2012 was a smart move. And if you were naive like me and saw the original G.I. Joe 2 trailer and saw Jess leading the joys with Bruce Fiss and thought Tatum was just captured or something, then we would have probably had the same reaction the test screening audience did. If Tham's character has to die, we want to see more of him, and The Rock being Boots before he goes. So naturally, after the studio did the screen test and got the feedback they brought that, and B, for a couple more scenes, the studio decided to delay the movie 9 months to film about a week or so of reshoot, and then convert the film into 3D. So understand which one is the real reason for such a delay and which one is the harmless white lie. If you have seen the movie, you can understand that Tatum character had to die for the joy to take revenge on Cobra. I mean the scene where the 3 remaining Jaws break into Bruce V house and Dan John puts all the dog stacks, close to 30 of them, on the table. The only person they mention they need to avenge by name is Duke, and follow it with, and our other brothers. Basically, Duke's death was necessary to motivate Rod Blocks to avenge him. And I guess the way the movie was originally, the audience didn't feel the connection between them. So it didn't feel like Roadblock was avenging his best friend Death. It felt like Roadblock was just taking over as team leader, and not much else. Okay, on December 12th, 2011, Machinima released the first trailer for the movie, and if you have seen the movie and the trailer, you can probably guess. Like I tried to which scenes were filmed after the movie, caught laid because of what scenes were in the trailer and which scenes feel like they were added. In afterwards, my guess would be the opening scene in North Korea, where Duke, Roadblock, and Flint get through the gate and rest. Risu, a man who was not being guarded, but is hiding in a truck under a blanket, while Mouse and Jay provide cover fire with sniper rifles, and then Flint changes the Korean flag with the Joe's flag. The reason I think this scene's for film after the movie got laid in, because it has no real relevance to the main storyline. Besides one point, it shows that the Jews work together well, but another reason it was probably film letter. You don't have all the Joe, which makes me think they couldn't. Not just get all the extra red shards, Joe's back, so they just got the main 5, plus the scene where all the CHS go, get the rocket proofs. They were all well together, and it has a relevance to the rest of the movie. The scene where Duke and Roadblock are playing a video game in Roadblock's house. There's 2 reasons I think it was filmed later. The first being that it was a very small scene, which it took up about 5 to 6 minutes, but probably only took them less than an hour to film. And the second reader is, again, relevance to actual story. It's kind of something has none. The scene only gets mentioned once throughout the movie, and the scene it gets mentioned it in another scene I think they filmed after they decided to delve the movie's release. When asked about this scene, Dan Jensen said all the dialogue between canning, and I was in that SC. It's like the Call of Duty just completely appealed, and I was not quite too sure how I was going to play anyway, and how good I was going to be at it. And him too, clearly he sued at it, and I was trying not to suck so dead, but yet trying to give him. At the same time, I was a lot of fun. That chemistry between Channing and I, not only did it jump off on screen, but when he did, and that he did it to be nice and genuine and authentic and real, he W up. Like out of his whole thing, we are like brothers. Now you can imagine what it was like on set, and again, we needed that to go where we were going in the movie. I had to feel real, and the bond had to feel real. The scene where Duke and Roadblock are betting who can shoot a candle out on top of the cupcake, as at the other side of the shooting range. This is probably another last-minute ad on screen, because like the previous scenes mentioned, it adds just about nothing to the actual story besides concerting their bomb R, and it took up a good couple minutes. But it probably did not take the long to film. That would be the guess of which scenes were filmed after the movie released at delay. And although they seem out of place somehow, it made the movie more likable, I think. But let's get on to what worked and what didn't with the GI sequel, the things that worked well in GI Retaliation, bringing back the sibling RLI of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, because Ninja Bly fighting is awesome. Bringing Diane Jensen and Bruce Willis into the series, no explanation needed, it has done before, where D. Jensen, The Rock, has been brought into a popular series that needs some rabble, and it has worked so far. Forgetting about Destro, I could barely understand of what he said in G-Joy, Rise of Cobra, which didn't make it threat that scary. So I am glad Cobra decided he was out of the band, as he said in Retaliation. But there's the thing I don't get in tries of Cobra saves Destro, I think 3 times, so they could team up later on, but then they get caught, and in G.I. Joy, to Cobra, Ledesto die. So why save him and inject him with the NTI to change his face into the Desto mask? The thing that doesn't make sense in that Desto is a skimpy little guy and not even good at fighting, and cannot even get a guard to be on his team without brainwashing. Just said the cliff side, battle with Snake Eyes and Jinx with flying ninjas. It's just about the coolest scene in the movie. Bringing Race TE as Firefly raced here is one of those actors and enjoyed seeing as a bad guy and good guy, whereas when Damn J actually always play a good guy, and there's a reason he played a bad guy in Get Smart, and he was not very convincing, but Stephen pulls it off and has a couple really good scenes, including 2 where he's fighting Roadblock, the better FS, near the end. But this coolest scene is where he breaks into the prison, where Storm Shadow, Cobra, Commander, and Destro are being held, and brow up the gate with it. Motorcycle. Yeah, I know signs weird, but watch the trailer and you will understand things that didn't work. The posters, this is the most common poster, and you have probably already seen. And this is the scary poster, not as common, but still relevant. Now, my problem with these posters is the Roadblock Snake Eyes and G that all switch SPS with someone, but they use the same extract image where they used a different image for Bruce V. Oh wait, they just use some of the character posters to balance out the I Am Morris D image, that even when they make him smaller by making his entire body be shown, instead of just his head is still bigger than everyone else. Music. So for the first poster, they use it to sneak eyes and do corrector poster for the second. They use to sneak eyes Joe's and Cobra character posters, just recycling their image every posters. Again repeating image of Joe Jinx and Cobra just used in a different spot on the posters. The second thing is not bringing back 80% of the cost and expecting us to forget they existed. It's almost as if the studio looked at G.I. Joy, The Rise of Cobra, and decided let's make a sequel by just bringing back the two ninjas and the president. But with the main good guy and bad guy, it's killed one of them so fast and recast the other entirely. Ear age.